guys. So let's go with a question here. Let me use an easy one. Do you need the
Oh, I did answer a bunch of them. Just so you know, I
cool? Yeah,
answered a
yeah. If
ton
you
of
answered them,
them. So
great.
if that
Yeah,
was
perfect.
helpful, I just
No,
answered a
no, no.
bunch. Yeah.
That's great. We no, we would be here till Super Dentist Boost 2022 if we answered all the questions here. So I'm an anonymous associate. My boss says not to bill for a buildup, but to bring the patient into a filling and then bring them back for a crown because you could bill for both. Is this allowed? What would you recommend, Dr. Matt?
So first of all, there are circumstances where you can do a buildup. You have to read your provider manual to understand we make cheat sheets in our office, and so we know what insurances will cover what. I find it's less expensive when you're treating patients. If they don't allow a buildup, just do it at the same appointment, because what the overhead is going to cost you to bring that patient in, set up, numb, do all the work, and then bring them back, there's not a whole lot of profit in that. So when you have a contract, sometimes they will allow you to charge the buildup on the prep date and the crown on the seat date. So just make sure you read your contract so you know how to get paid. It doesn't make sense to not charge for a buildup and then just charge out the crown. That doesn't mean you can't collect the patient portion for the crown early. It just means you can't send the claim to the insurance until the crown is seated.
Great. Thanks. Input there. Great start to this. I also do a lot of this thing called what would you do? So I do this online with Dental Nacho. I said, what would you do if this was your tooth and you can only see a PA? Would you save it like Private Ryan, or would you rip it out of your head? This seems to upset many dentists. They often ask for a bite wing of a bite wing, a probing depth on their third grade teacher, and what's the medical history of the person's pet, because dentists want more information to make a decision. But now we're going to change this to practice management for all three of you. So what would you do if this is a great question? So if I went home to Mrs. Nacho and I said, hey, I'm going to love you 20% less in 2022 than I did in 2021. And when she threw a shoe at my head, I would say, but it's still love. So what's up with dental insurance companies paying less when everything costs more? So I want you to channel this. Okay. If we're on a set, you be this person. You are a practice owner of 3 years. Your practice is doing $800,000 a year. You take a mix of PPO and fee-for-service stuff, but now you are seeing that spoiled guac PPO is paying less each year. What would you do? What value could you share? And this is a personal question for you. I'll start with you, Kira. What's some takeaways? What's something you would do if you were Kira's House of Dentisting and Nachos and this was happening?
Yeah, I think it's important to realize that insurance, like Dr. Mapp said, is not your friend. It's just a coupon. And so, although insurances are changing and they're not paying as much, we have to teach our teams and remind ourselves that that insurance does not direct our dentistry. And so, train your teams, help them see that insurance is just a coupon. It's a bucket of money, and when it's gone, it's gone. But that doesn't mean we don't stop doing dentistry. So, I would say, look at your fees, like Dr. Mapp said. See if you can move out of some of them, but also like help your team realize. I think one of the biggest changes for me as a team member was when I realized that insurance did not dictate the dentistry. And if I could overcome those objections with my patients, I saw a question like, how do you tell a patient that the buildup's not covered? Well, like, be a word ninja on that is how I call that. And instead of saying the negative, like, unfortunately, insurance doesn't cover this. Unfortunately, like, the good news is we get to use X amount of your insurance for this, and this is going to be your total out of pocket. And I think coming in more of a confidence versus like the negative of, oh, insurance, because the reality is like dentistry is a lot more than that $1,000 coupon. And I think we just help our teams and our practices get away from insurance being the driver and us driving the treatment and helping build value that way. So that's what my answer would be.
Awesome, Karen. I like that. It's for you guys to incorporate what fits in your workflow. I'm going to go to Dr. Mapp and Dr. Pick in a second. Everything I do is based on relationship. The jokes that I make with Dr. Stephanie Mapp after knowing her are not the same jokes I make the first day I meet her. The things I say to patients that I've known for 15 years are not the same things I say to patients I've known for 5 minutes. But one thing that I will share, and I love Stephanie's slide, is I will add in person, right? Maybe not on a video, but in person. Hey, at best, your insurance is a coupon. At worst, it's a scam. At best, it's a coupon. At worst, it's a scam. Because we're trying to capture $1,000. You're paying $800 for it. So that's what I'll share with them. Dr. Pick, what would you do as a doctor? Dr. Tad, you own a practice. You're enjoying it, but you're noticing that insurance companies are paying less. I know you're a fan of fee-for-service. Give us a few tips from you.
Boy, we have about 10 hours. It's a great question. And First off, one of the things that I try to do when I coach a team is, number one, to do that pick business team building retreat, to not only figure out your mission, vision, culture, your brand. What do you do better than anybody else? By doing that, you can focus in on that, go more fee for service, and begin to slowly eliminate insurance. We work so hard as dentists. We bust our butts, and no other profession looks for loose enamel rods. No other profession. If we're off by half a millimeter, the patient complains. Nobody goes, my belly scar is off by half a millimeter. Can you adjust it? We work hard. So I always encourage, know your brand. What do you do better than anybody else? Try to do more fee for service.
I love that, Doug. What I'll just add is, because I transformed our practice from this one spoiled guac PPO that we took for decades, and I knew there was going to be pain. I knew I was going to make less money. I knew patients were going to leave, and I knew we might have to reduce team, but I went through that pain. You cannot avoid it. If you've gained weight and go on a diet, there's going to be pain. If you haven't exercised and you're going to exercise, there's going to be pain. There's always going to be pain with the change that you want to get through. So you cannot avoid any pain. But what I'll share with you, and I shared with this morning while getting ready for Super Dentist Boost, an awesome dentist has a group just like ours and is thinking about making changes. And I said, going through the pain of that, I'm glad I did it. Just like patients who do a big implant case and say, I should have done this sooner. Just like people who do coaching with Kira and Bob say, I should have done this sooner. Just like people who talk to Stephanie and say, I should have done this sooner. But it doesn't mean you don't get the pain. Dr. Stephanie, you're Tad, good practice, but you notice you're getting paid less each year, but you've signed up for a long time. What would you do to battle this?
So the first thing you need to do is actually, once you know the reality of the numbers, is you have to look at how much you're getting reimbursed as a percentage of your entire patient pool. So before you can just rip off the Band-Aid and drop something, you have to make a plan. It takes time. It many times takes 1 to 2 years to get out of a plan. And you need to focus on what things you can do to improve your collections from other insurance companies and other patients before you go ripping off the Band-Aid. But you can get out of the worst plan there is. I've done it multiple times. I go in and out of plans all the time. And I see dentists that are accepting 40-something% of their full fee. And they say, oh, this is 25% of my practice. I can't drop this. The reality is you can drop it and you can actually make more money and lose patients. So losing patients is not a practice killer. Losing patients allows you to spend more time with the patients that have better reimbursements or are willing to pay the difference.
And I love that, Stephanie. It goes, one of the moderators made me this sign that I have near my desk all the time. Be kind. And I know we talk about this on Dental Nachos, but it fits with everything. When you shift status with an insurance plan, be kind to everybody involved. Be kind. It doesn't mean, I heard Radical Candor is a great book. Gary Vee talks about kind candor. It means being honest, but you can be kind. People might circle back with you later. Say you'll always be there for them. I also really have a good tip here. It's really a special one. So if you do want to drop a plan and you're worried your patients will be upset, I have something here. Someone has written in, you can refer all of your patients to Dr. Stephen Martin. He will be glad to take all of your insurance placement. He takes hard candy DMO. So we might have a special guest after we finish the C join us on this group. So let's go to another question. Great job there. I'm going to ask a question here. This is really just a good one. Kira and Stephanie will have most fits with you guys. Bob, you can incorporate. Can you work in a practice where the owner and other associates accept certain insurances that you don't want to accept yourself? How do you do that? Stephanie, I actually have a lot of thoughts on this, but Stephanie, I'll let you go first.
So we actually have a practice like this. Under the same roof, we have one fee-for-service dentist. I take kind of the middle, certain percentage of plans that are the higher reimbursing plans. And then we have a younger associate who's trying to build her patient base, and she's pretty much signed up for almost all the PPOs. Gotcha. So yes, it's entirely possible. You have to be very smart with how it's credentialed and how it's set up with the insurance companies. And it can be a little difficult if your staff isn't trained to manage. Why would one patient pick one provider over the other? There has to be a lot of training there.
And in the real game of basketball, Akira, go next. The real game of basketball, when this happens, somebody's on vacation and spoiled guac PPO isn't there, and then you do this, or you're writing it off. So I also want to share, Stephanie, actually a question. Some will not allow this, though, correct? Like
Correct.
some
Correct.
all or none. So
Yes.
we tried that. Kira, any thoughts to add on that?
Yeah, I think that those are great answers. Like check your stakes. I've seen it works in some offices and some not. And I think I'm just going to tie back to what Dr. Matt said of have a plan, because I think on a team member side, it can be very easy to schedule and schedule productively if I know the rules and parameters and we're constantly reassessing that. But otherwise, it can get like a hot mess if you don't have a plan, like Dr. Matt said. So I feel like it's definitely doable and don't be afraid of it. Just make sure your team is all on the same board. Otherwise, you will start writing things off and it will not be billed out correctly. You'll have upset patients. And so just having that plan in play, and also check with your state laws to make sure that you're in a state that will allow for that.
Awesome. Love that answer. I'm going to go with Dr. Pick. So someone just bought a practice that takes a lot of DMOs and HMOs, and they're thinking about dropping them, Dr. Pick. What are some ways to improve your service if you want to drop these HMOs and DMOs, and anything they should look out for before dropping them too soon? We'll start with you. But you bought a practice. I do a lot with transitions, and I have some thoughts on this. I do want to add before my thoughts about this, and I'm not even going against my good friend Stephanie. I attempted to have different dentists on different insurance plans. It got very confusing for our team, and we removed that. So I did attempt that for a while. I'm not saying you can't do that, but it got a little confusing for our team to say, oh, Dr. Smith is in, Dr. Jones is out. Doesn't mean it can't be done. You just got to really train your team well. Dr. Pick, you bought a practice, takes HMOs and DMOs. You want to drop them. What are some things to think about?
It's a great question with a tough answer. First off, Stephanie and Kara hit some nails on the head. First off, when you drop those plans, it doesn't happen overnight. That's a process that takes some time. But as you increase fee for service, you got to do your purple cow wows. What can you do that blows the patients away in such a way that if there's a bad time, if there's a recession, if there's a problem, you have such an awesome office culture that nobody leaves. They'd rather wait. We do things such as the triple PVC, pick, post, procedure, video check.
Great one.
We call all our patients the night of a procedure. I have a sheet that my team gives me with patients' names, the procedure we call that night. The next morning, and I can send a link to everybody on the article. The next morning, right after huddle, I get together with myself and my two assistants. We run a 59-second video to those patients. Hey, Dr. Nacho, it's Bob Pick. I'm here with my assisting team, Sonia and Gosha. We wanted to check on you today just to make sure those veneers look awesome. I know from calling you last night, you were still a little numb. Any problems, day or night? Here's my office number. This is my personal cell. Please feel free to call me at any time. We then send that at 11:30 a.m. with a note. Hey, Dr. Nacho, please see the video. It not only blows the patient away, they most likely could be at work. They're going to show it to other people. I just did one the other day. Patient goes, I have a referral for you. So
That's so important. What I want to use, Bob, is that's awesome. It's a B word. It's about bonding with your patients. It's not about stealing other patients. Stephanie was standing at Alvez, 13th and Sansom. There's 10 other amazing restaurants that are all filled because they all bond in their own unique way. So we talk too much about competition, not enough about collaboration, and it's developing relationship with those people and keeping them there. I want to add in before I go to Stephanie and Kira with this question about the HMOs and DMOs. Rob Montgomery, dental focus attorney, always talks that if you lease a dental space or any space, you don't want your landlord to have a seat at the table when you go to sell it, because people sign bad contracts and people can't sell their practice to a DSO because of some weird lease thing. So I will say to my patients sometimes, because I like to have short words. The reason we are shifting status with your dental insurance is because we don't want them to have a seat at the table in deciding what kind of dental care we offer you. Simple 2 sentences. You can also, someone asked, you can use the coupon thing. It's for everyone to use. Stephanie, how about that? You bought an HMO or DMO practice. You want to drop them. What's the worry about dropping too soon? Or what would you do?
Actually, I I am a big fan of dropping it sooner rather than later for an HMO or DMO, because what usually happens is as you're trying to grow your practice, those patients crowd out the room for the other plans that are much better reimbursement. So I actually have worked DMO in my previous life as a BAD. I can tell you, it overwhelms and consumes a practice. So I'm a big fan of dropping quickly.
Awesome. Kira, how about you? You've owned practices, kind of cool that you in Arizona, you can own a practice. You don't have to drill in the teeth. You can own practices, Kira. Very, very unique. Tell us about that. Someone's consulting with you, or you're thinking about what are some thoughts for somebody who wants to drop DMOs or HMOs in a practice they purchase?
Yeah, I second all of that. Dropping sooner than later. And I had an office that we worked with that was so terrified. And I think it's just that fear. And I think to your point, Paul, that's like a scarcity mindset versus an abundance mindset. I have seen it over and over and over again, where the sooner you drop those plans, you have space to bring in the patients that you're really looking to grow to. So I think also for that practice who wants to drop, know the direction you really want to go, because that's going to inspire you and excite you and your team. And then I've also seen some offices where that 10 to 2 o'clock time period, where that's already not a convenient time period anyway, we can actually schedule our HMO, DMO patients right there. Like, hey, Dr. Paul loves to see patients at this time. Let's get you scheduled there. Notice I didn't say, do you want to? I said, let's get you scheduled. And then you can open up those prime spots for your PPO fee for service patients, but that can help. So that dead time in your schedule anyway, you're actually filling if you're afraid to drop it. But I agree, just rip that band-aid. You'll be okay, especially if you know where you want to go. I've seen it happen over and over and over again. It's just people trusting it and taking that leap.
Love that, Kira. My brother Jeff and I travel to the office together. I know you know Jeff, and he always says, like Kira Den says, yes, we can. It's a great way to talk to him. Like Kira says, yes, we can, not why we can. We do things. So I'm going to do this now. If you guys see me stop my video, don't worry. I'm looking to get a special guest on with us. We might also pop into the Dental Nachos group. This will be our last question for the CE, but all of you guys stay on. We're going to have an after party here during lunch. But this is the question I'm going to set you guys up with, and I'll go from Bob, Stephanie, Kira again. But here it is. It's a good one, and you can even read it in the Q&A yourself. But I am a D3, so important. We got dentists who've been in practice for 40 years. Bob, how many years have you been in practice? 40? How many? 35? Yeah.
37.
37. So we got someone who's bad in training, and said, I'm a D3 and I know virtually nothing about insurance billing. However, a fellow classmate of mine told me that you can have a patient pay the full fee in the time of treatment and file the claim, and they can get some of their money back. This takes away the margin of uncollected money because it puts it on the patient. I thought if the office had to file the insurance claim. So let's talk about, because I know you probably do this, Bob, and you've dealt with this, Kira. What about these offices that want the patient to pay and get the money back? Where do you see that working well? What are some things you could share with this D3? And I'll be back in about 5 minutes. You guys can get along without me. Be right back. Bob can go first.
Yes.
Or Stephanie, or let Stephanie go first. Stephanie, you go first.
Okay, so this depends on a lot of factors. The number one factor in my experience is how saturated is your community with dentists. You can wow everybody that comes through the door, but if you're in a very saturated market, you're not going to maintain those patients, because even if you're very wow, you will lose patients who value the dollar more than they value you. And I respect Dr. Pick. I think he is amazing. He's built some phenomenal things in his career, but I have found for me, it didn't work well in my area. And so what we have to do is we have to collect the least amount up front in our area, or we lose patients. It's just as simple as that. We have one dentist per 1,100 people, and at the time that I was fee for service, we had 6 dentists. Now we have 26 dentists, and we're in a cost-conscious community. There's way more cost-conscious communities than there are communities that are willing to pay out of pocket for all their dental work up front. That's just how ours is.
Yeah, I think to double back on that, I think knowing your area, knowing your patients, I totally agree. Some areas it works amazing and they do a great job. Other practices, like thanks but no thanks. I think, again, you can word ninja. That's what I do a lot with teams, is helping them figure out different phrases to say. Some offices that do it really well, if they want the patient to pay in full and then get reimbursed, is they say, hey, you actually pay in full and you get the credit card points for it. But to Dr. Mapp's point, it might not work with your patient base. I'm always all about like being an advocate for the patient while having the practice be very profitable at the same time. So how can I make that patient feel like $1 million and still have our practice profitable? I think it's something that we get hung up on, when the reality is, like, let's bill for them, let's estimate their fees for them, let's collect. There's lots of programs. I know Dr. Pick had said about calling the patients. You guys, there's softwares like Medento.io is one of my favorites that will help you with sending statements to patients to get easier payments. I think simplifying a lot of the processes might be the time that we're spending, that, hey, if we just utilize some of the resources that are out there that are incredible. Medento also sends voicemails and you can send videos directly. So there's lots of different ways to save time in your practice that I would caution what you're saving time on, and is that impacting your practice negatively or positively? Try it out. It doesn't hurt to try it, I think, and just see kind of the results you're getting.